All right, we're live. I always forget to add us to the stream while that stuff's playing. Anyway,
Hey,
I was
everybody.
writing some notes down and we almost didn't get started on time. Let me go over here to the comments. Before we get started, I'm going to start making this Saturday sip along thing about an hour long,
Okay. Yeah.
right? Uh, and so maybe the gut of the content be about 45 minutes to an hour. And then I'm going to start ending this stream and starting another one. That way I have a 45-minute to 1 hour, maybe a little more, uh, live that was live that posts. And then I'll have a Saturday sip along after party. And to let y'all know, what's up, Crazy Ann?
Hey, Crazy Ann.
I've already scheduled the Saturday sip along after party. It's out there right now, scheduled.
You too.
Yeah, good to see you. Let me get through this right quick.
Sorry.
And I've already pinned the StreamYard link on there. Now, of course, I'm not in that studio right now, so I can't bring anybody up, but as soon as we're done with this, I have it scheduled, I think, for 7:25.
Right.
But I can start it early and get it going. But there's the housekeeping piece of it right there. But we're going to leave this show here strictly for the bourbon talk,
Right.
the more serious talk, and then we'll switch over. All right, so Crazy Ann, it's good to see you. I'm glad it's good to see Joe. And Joe did confirm I did give him that chicken cock, and he
Yes.
does have it at his
Yes.
house. So
I have a glass every night.
yep. All right. So, but only one.
Only one. Yeah. Except when I'm on call.
And not Crazy Ann's version of 17 of them. Yeah. So what we're going to talk about tonight, and this is good for replay or whatever, right? But what we're going to talk about tonight is bourbons that if you're new and you want to start building a bourbon shelf, what do you buy? You walk in the store, you look around, and it looks like there's more selection than hopefully I wouldn't have that. I would love to have more selection than I could shake a stick at. Right?
That's right.
But a lot of times I go in and I'm like, oh, even though it may look like a lot of bourbon up there, it looks like my shelf behind me, and I'm like, God, there's nothing here I need, And so but if you're just starting off, now some of these you may already have. What I can say at first, the advice I can give somebody is with these cheaper bourbons. What's up, Mr. Great Shot? How's it going? With these cheaper bourbons, and when I say cheaper, I mean sub $40, right? So $35, $36. Go in 1 week and buy 3 of them, but don't open one. Put it on the shelf. Don't touch what's on the shelf, and then have a different spot that you drink from, and then pour yourself a shot or two from those bottles. Then when you go back and you get another sub $40, buy like 2 of them, unless you don't know if you like it or not, right? But when you're buying these maker's mark, and you're buying these Elijah Craigs, get 2 or 3 bottles of it. That way you can really become familiar with that bourbon. And now you don't even have to open the one on your shelf to even talk about it, but it's there, right? And if you still have some as a backup, put that down underneath. Like I have unopened bottles down here, of stuff, and they're scattered around, where I have like 2 bottles of the Old Forester 1920. I will buy it every time it's on the shelf, and Eagle Rare. I have 2 bottles of that, 1.5, so I buy it every time it's available. Buff Trace the same way, right? I have an open and unopened. So those are the type of things that's how you keep your stock going, so that when sipping on early times, bottled and bond. All right, definitely tasty. But so what I'm going to do is go through my list. Now, these are not base bourbons. These are just a step up from base bourbon, right? And even throwing out something like Buffalo Trace, people think, oh, well, that's Buffalo Trace's base bourbon. No, it's not. They have cheaper shit than that. You just like McAfee's benchmark down there is bottled by Buffalo Trace. It's aged in the same rick house, way up high in the heat, and they water it down, right? And so Buffalo Trace is actually their signature base bourbon, what they would call their lowest end, because they have the antique line, the Wellers, the wheated line. They have the Eagle Rare non-wheated line, that type of stuff. Buffalo Trace and Eagle Rare, by the way, same damn mash bill. It's just the barrels are treated differently and they're aged differently, and that's why you get different notes. So that's how that can be. All right, Old Forester 1870. I think it's on my list here.
So that would be your recommendation for a first bottle for somebody that just wanted to get into.
Well, okay. So here's my first bottles. Like if you want to build a shelf, this box I have up here at the top, and I know they can't see it, but this box right here, I consider staples to a shelf. And I may not have every one of these, but my shelf's so advanced that I used to have all these. I kept every one of these on the shelf at all times. Now I've outgrown the need to have like every one of them, because I have other comparable bourbons that are maybe a little higher quality or whatever. But here's my list right now of the ones I always kept around. And you'll notice these are one step above normal offerings in most cases, right? So instead of Maker's Mark, get you a Maker's Mark to drink, but get you a Maker's 46 for your shelf, right? It's a little bit more oakiness to it, a little bit better. Get yourself a Knob Creek 9 to drink and get a 12 for your shelf, right? So the Knob Creek 12 year that's sitting right up there, it is a little bit better quality on the bourbon. Get a Russell's Reserve 10 year to drink and get a Russell's Reserve single barrel for your shelf, right? Because that Russell's Reserve, that 10 year, that is not as, I mean, the other one's more, it's higher proof. The single barrel, it's like a cask strength. The Russell's Reserve 10 year is not. And it's cheaper. The Russell's Reserve 10 is cheaper than the Russell's Reserve single barrel. Then I always recommend adding both Elijah Craig Small Batch and Larceny from Heaven Hill. Those are two bourbons where one is sweeter and the other one's drier. And I always recommend getting both of them, if you want to build a shelf. Now, honorable mentions, if you want to take that one step, Maker's Mark 46 is pretty good. It's right behind me. You can't see it right now. But I know it's there. I can feel it. I can feel the heat off of it right here on the back of my neck.
Yeah.
But the honorable mentions for that shelf, and we're starting to get into the $50 range now, is Old Forester 1897, the bottled and bond one, and then Woodford Reserve double oaked. So you can get a regular Woodford if you want, but I'd get that from my other shelf. I'd put my double oak back here, And so then, that's going to take time to build, right? If you went out and bought all this at once, you're talking about $600-700. But if you get a couple of daily sippers and then get that bottle to put on that shelf and leave it alone, right, until you get around to it. Once you get all these built up, then you can start taking a special snifter every once in a while out of here, but mostly drink off that other shelf, until you get it really built up. I mean, that's how I built my shelf. I bought a bunch of regular stuff over there, and I would compare it to this stuff. And then, of course, I would review these every time I got new bottles. I would do a weekly review on them, and, I would eventually make it through them all. So that's phase one. So any questions about phase one? Because what we have here is you're hitting your Maker's Mark, right? You're hitting the Beam Suntory line. You're hitting Bullet. You're hitting the Wild Turkey on the Russells. You're hitting Heaven Hill on Elijah Craig and Larceny. If you add the Old Foresters, you're hitting the Old Forester line. Woodford then, shit, I can't even remember the distillery that makes Woodford. Mr. Great Shot, you probably, as soon as I see it, I'll be like, yeah, that's it. But um, uh, Andalusia and a Redbreast 12 today. Yeah, the Redbreast 12 is supposed to be pretty good. I don't have money to spend on anything besides bourbon. I have to keep the shelf going. So, but yeah, the phase one piece, you're spreading among distilleries, and you're hitting straight bourbon whiskeys.
And these are pretty easy to find.
Oh yeah, most of these you can get right off your shelf right now. You go down and you can find these. They're not hard to get. Most liquor stores should have all of this, most of this, if not all of it, in stock. Right down there. Now, beyond that, you're starting to step up into the $50 range. Now, when I say that, it's either $50 range plus or harder to find. And if you get MSRP on an Eagle Rare, you're sub 50, but a lot of places upcharge it because it's hard to find, or you just can't find it on the shelf, right? So my next part of the list goes into the Henry McKenna 10-year, Eagle Rare, and if you can't find Eagle Rare, go ahead and get a Michter's US 1. George Remus is a good one to add. Now, George Remus is one that there's a lot of MGP juice out there, right? But George Remus is an MGP original. That's the one that they put out. So it's good to have that one. Yeah, the rare breed. Yeah, rare breed is also, yeah, now that one is a good one. And you know what? I was trying to write this stuff down, and you can see I was almost a minute late starting this. That is the other one I was trying to get my eyeball on. There it is. It's tucked back in behind that Kentucky Spirit. That's one there where you would get the Kentucky Spirit to drink and get the rare breed for the shelf. Same exact mash bill, but Kentucky Spirit's a lower proof and it's cheaper. You will get very similar notes out of it, but you're going to get a lot more potent juice out of that, the 116.8 barrel proof on that rare breed. Yep, absolutely. That's
Rare
another
breed,
one.
okay.
Another one on that first list over there. Then Old Forester 1920 and or 1910. You know, either one of them. And you're going to pay a little more for that than you did the 1897 bottled in bond, but you're going to get a better bourbon out of it. And then anything Elijah Craig barrel proof. If you don't have one, get whatever's on the shelf. If you can find, then keep your ear to the ground. And when you hear us raving over a certain batch of it, go grab that one if you can, because they'll be about the same price. And once you get those on the shelf now, you've got what I consider the bottom line for the studio shelf or the display shelf. Maybe you don't want to go live, but you want to impress friends that come over and do bourbon tastings or whatever. Now you've got a good setup. Once you get those bases and then you get that mid-range in there, you've got a good start at that point. But keep buying that other stuff, you know, to keep you out of that, you know. And then for the higher end stuff, and we can start debating after this, there's a big wide range, and it all depends on what you can find in your area. If you are lucky enough to live in Kentucky, you know,
you can find anything.
Shoot the moon, right? And follow the truck around when it's making deliveries so you can be in line. But usually, typically, in a lot of places, and they're growing right now, is a Smoke Wagon Uncut Unfiltered. That is big time good stuff. Then Booker's, they're starting to price themselves out. You're going to pay 90 plus for a Booker's. I don't think they're worth more than 80. But if that's what they're going to charge, if I'm going to get a Booker's, I'm going to pay it, you know. Wild Turkey 101, I'd put that on the other shelf. But I do have one on this shelf. But Yeah, I would get the Wild Turkey 101 as my sipper to keep me out of the good stuff until I built up. And then the other stuff, and this is more like, this could be mid, but this is more specialty, is the Rabbit Hole line. Simply because they malt all of their grains, they distill at a lower proof, then they barrel at a lower proof than 125, and they bring you barrel proof, but they don't call it barrel proof because it's not a high proof, right? It's, maybe 102 proof or 98 proof or whatever, right?
Mhm.
But they distilled it low, and then they cut it a little bit to get it in the barrel at what they considered the perfect proof. And then of course the proof's going to go up a little bit in the barrel. And what they told me was they may cut it a little tiny bit. If they're trying to shoot for a 95 on a bourbon and it comes out 99, they may bring it back to 96 or 7, but they'll taste it along the way, but they try to add as little water as possible. So that's why it's more expensive. So you're going to pay, $70 range on those. But those are more what I would consider, after your shelf is built, start adding those specialty ones. Now, those are the straight bourbon whiskeys. So to go over the rule one more time, 51 or more % corn, cereal grains, you've got a full line here. Now, I didn't mention Four Roses. And the reason I didn't mention Four Rose, a single barrel, is their high rye. And there's a couple other ones that are higher rye on this list. But if you want to add a Four Roses single barrel to have that 35% rye, go for it. It's a little bitey, but yeah, go for it. Other honorable mentions that are straight bourbons are 1792 is a good cheaper bottle.
Where does the chicken come into this?
It's a higher price.
It is.
Yeah, that was $75, $80 for that chicken cock. That is one though that's not worth the price. You're buying the name. You're buying the history behind chicken cock. You're buying that chicken wire raised glass bottle. Fostering Luna right now. Well, that's cool. But now we can get out of straight bourbons, but let's go over and if anybody has any more comments to add about Nicole Radin Hissler, thank you. And I hope I pronounced that correctly. I try. But those are all straight bourbons, and most of them are Kentucky straight bourbons. But I don't want to say that about all of them because, like Smoke Wagon is a MGP procured bourbon that's barreled and then sent to Nevada. And then they have a climate controlled warehouse and they age however they want to, And then the uncut, unfiltered, of course, is straight from the barrel to the bottle, and it's fantastic. But,
Favorite.
One of my favorites. Yeah. Certainly my favorite cigar bourbon. Yeah. I just don't always want to spend $85 on a bottle of bourbon. So, because I could buy 2 other bottles or I could buy that one.
Yeah.
And I'd rather spend $100 and get 2 $45, $50 bourbons than spend 85 on one a lot of times, because I'm going for what can I review? What do I not have? That type of stuff. So we were going over the rules about it. Straight bourbon follows all the rules of bourbon, except for it has to have a minimum age of 2 years. And if it's under 4 years, they're supposed to disclose the age somewhere. They used to make them put it on the bottle. Now they don't. But usually on their website, they'll say this is a 2 year, 4 months aging or something, because they're still supposed to tell you. Now, the 4 years still comes in on the bottled and bond. So there's other rules around bottled and bonds. So that Old Forester, now all Old Foresters are over 4 years old, right? But the bottled and bond has to be 100 proof, 50% ABV, 4-year age. They have to be aged in a bonded rick house, and they do inspections and stuff every once in a while, make sure everything's, right.
So why'd they make them stop putting it on the bottle? I mean,
Well,
why did they let them stop?
They
putting it on
laxed the
bottle?
rules. Yeah, and what got complicated was these multi-blend bourbons. Now, we'll talk about blends here in a minute, but if I would encourage anybody building their shelf to go straight bourbon at first, because once you get used to these straight bourbons, you will tell a difference, and you'll be able to tell when you get something marked bourbon. Something marked bourbon they can put the white dog in a barrel for 12 seconds and pour it back out. I mean, they could, as fast as they get it in there, they could start bottling it. Now it's still going to be white, clear, so they won't do that. But what they do is they put those barrels in an extreme heat environment, so it'll extract the color and everything out of that wood really fast, real fast. And they'll age them for like 2 months, and then they'll bottle it. Now, at that point, you're pretty much getting a lot of color, and you're not getting a lot of flavor, not depth of flavor anyway. Now, some of them will be marked bourbon, and they are straight bourbons as a blend. I don't know why they don't put it on the bottle, but I have to research them and just know that, yeah, those are straight bourbons in there. There's a couple of 2-year age and a couple of 6-year age, and this type of stuff. And all it has to be is 51 or more percent of the bourbon in the blend has to be straight bourbon, aged minimum of 2 years. So as long as they have that in there at 51%, they could put something in there aged 12 seconds on top of it and call it a blended straight bourbon, because it's same deal as corn. Has to be 51 or more percent corn, but it could be 100%. But to a blend of straight. Now, if they say a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys, plural, all of them in there have to be straight bourbons, because that is but if it says blended straight bourbon whiskey, no, only 51% of the juice has to be straight bourbon.
Oh.
So, I mean, and we already went over all of the aging, like the different, like you bury it underground in the cooler, you can age it a lot longer. If you put it up in the attic, it's going to age super quick because the heat rises, and those are typically cheaper bourbons. And the faster you age them, typically you're going to lose less to Angel Share, Devil's Cut, all that stuff. I always thought it was funny when they came out with like Jim Beam Devil's Cut, and Jim Beam doesn't hardly lose anything out of those barrels on regular old Jim Beam bourbon, because they age it fast and harsh and boom, and I'm talking about the plastic, screw the top off, put it in your hip pocket type stuff. But that's all Devil's Cut is they supposed to get bourbon from the wood, that soaked into the wood, squeeze it out. I don't know I haven't looked into it. I think it's just a hype thing, I think if they really actually did what they said, it would be bitter as frick, because that's where all the wood tannins are, and live. Now, once you get this straight bourbon shelf built and you want to start tipping over into other things, finished bourbons would be the first thing I would add. And then if you look at even Rabbit Hole, if you want to spend the money on that, the Angel's Envy is finished in port wine barrels.
That was good. I remember that one.
Right.
That was good.
The Burning Chair, it's going to be about $60, but it's finished in Cabernet barrels. Now, if you want to get serious about it, Woodford Reserve Double Oaked is actually a finished bourbon, but it's not finished in a barrel that had anything else in it. It's a different char, different type of oak, but the Rabbit Hole has finished in different things. And I'm trying to think. Oh, Legion is a blend that has straight bourbon in it. That's Beam Suntory, by the way. And Legion is where the Japanese guy worked with, the master distillers and all, and came up with his own blend of stuff with some Japanese stuff in it and all that. It's supposed to be a fusion of the Orient and America, type thing. But yeah, I would add the finished bourbons first, and that Grand Cru up there, that Founders Reserve, that's finished in French Grand Cru wine barrels. Oh my God, that's one of the best finished bourbons I've ever had. That Obtainium I got from Shane Long down in South Carolina at shoot, I forgot the name of the distillery now. Anyway, he that's a finished. That's what he does. He procures barrels and then finishes them in other barrels. He'll finish them in stuff that had bourbon. Then they brewed a beer and put in it, like a Bourbon County Stout or something. He'll get that barrel and then put bourbon back in it again. And man, you get some crazy flavors out of that stuff.
Any Pinot Noir?
No, but that's the stuff where you get. I would say stick with the straight bourbons first, because this is going to tell you, especially if you're just starting out. Oh yeah, man. Cheers. Hey, I always try to stop by and say hi when I can. And finished bourbons, though, anyone starting off and they're trying to get a nose for it, I would really, really encourage you to start with straight bourbons, and then throw in a regular bourbon here and there. Like, I don't know, I wouldn't go down to Lead Slingers or anything, but there's some that aren't straight bourbons. But then when you look at straight bourbons, you have Peerless and you have all these other ones I didn't name. But a lot of the state branded, or the stuff that's local to states like North Carolina, South Carolina, some of those, they'll age them long enough, but some of them they just put bourbon on it, and they'll even say on their website it's aged like 6 months or something, but it's a hotter climate and all that type of stuff. So anyway, I would start there, and then I would add the finished bourbons, because now you're used to this. And then I would sample a few regular bourbons here and there, see what you like, add them to your shelf if they're good. If not, put them over there. They're drinkable. Just finish them off on the other shelf, but don't give them to your special guests. And then after that, look at the blends, because blending there's an art to blending, right? And it's being able to sample different barrels and in your mind put together the jigsaw puzzle of notes that you think this is going to end up being, and if you can put two bourbons together that are just opposed to each other and try to blend those, and you're going to end up with some shoe polish or something, so, and then it's not just blending, like taking a barrel and pouring them together, right? It's like, well, I want 2 barrels of this to 1 barrel of this, but then I want a half barrel of this, so let's double this, and then I'll slide a barrel of this in,
A lot of mathematics.
It's a lot, because you're wanting to, and what they'll do is they'll take samples out of those barrels and they'll blend them in a small container, and they'll blend different variances on it, and they'll sit there and taste through them, nose them and everything, go, okay, this is the winner right here. What ratio was this? And then they'll say, okay, that's what we're going to go with and bottle. And it could be too that they blend those things at a certain ratio, and then they add a little bit of water to it and go, okay, there it is. Bingo. So we're going to not cut it. We're not going to say we're going to cut it to a certain proof. We're going to cut it to a certain percent, because that's our sweet spot. That's what we're looking for. And then whatever the proof comes out to be, if it's 97.4, that's what they bottle it at, and that's what they put on the bottle. And the reason a lot of it comes out the same, but then there's small batches, right? So barrels could age a little bit longer or whatever. They could age a little different They could lose a little more volume out of one barrel than another. This barrel could have a higher alcohol content, even though they were all barreled at 125. You know, this one could be at 127.8. This one could be at 129. So when you look at those small batches and you're looking at, like on the George Remuses and the Clyde Mays and different ones, and you can say, well, this is the store pick or batch I got. And this one happens to be 112 proof. But that doesn't mean every batch is going to be 112 proof, because they're not cutting to a proof, they're cutting to a ratio.
Does it taste different?
They can.
Bottles?
Yep. Yeah, you will get different profiles. And that's why I say one of the best barrel proofs that came from Elijah Craig was the B520. That one impressed me. And I've had very similar ones, you know, but that one just kind of, to me, edges out the rest. It was just that particular batch. Now, you're going to get similar notes across all of it. It's going to be a similar profile, but you're going to get different notes. You know, it's going to have a different complexity to it. But that's where I would start. And then sky's the limit. Once you are comfortable with all of this and you are familiar with all of this, then start dabbling outside, you know, because your comfort zone will expand. And once your comfort zone expands and and all that is just doing it. People, and I say this all the time, people who write a lot can write a lot. People who run a lot can run a long ways.
Yep.
People who lift a lot of weight can lift a lot of damn weight, right? And so people who drink a lot of bourbon and really get down into dissecting what it is, you get familiarity with it, and it's probably not the healthiest exercise in the world, but hey, it's you know, and it doesn't have to be unhealthy.
Maybe not healthy, but pretty damn fun.
Right.
Huh?
Yeah, it's pretty damn fun. But so let's do this. Let's pour something from this mid-range over here and something from this first list. So let's do a Knob Creek 12, because we haven't poured that on this show.
On the show, right.
And let's put that up against the Henry McKenna 10-year. How about that? So
sounds good to me.
Now, the reason I wanted to do this is because people get hung up on the number. And I guarantee you, this Knob Creek 12 is not. Now, I don't want to put anything in your head. I don't want to put anything in your head. But we're going to put a 12-year bourbon against a 10-year bourbon. Now, this is a bottled in bond. It's 100 proof. This one here is also 100 proof. They are exact proof. One of them is 12-year and the other one's 10-year, right? Totally different stuff here. So I'm going to give you a couple snifters, and I'm going to get me a couple of them. This is Beam Suntory.
Slide up a little bit to get ready.
I'm not going to pour a whole bunch. I'm just going to pour enough to get a swirl and a taste. Now, this, theoretically, and it all depends on where it was aged, how it was aged, what conditions it was aged under, but this is a 12-year bourbon. Stress again, and this one's 10. All right, there's a little of that. Now, you can compare color. Just make sure you keep them separated. You know which one's which. I'm going to set the Henry McKenna bottle this way and the Knob Creek over here, and I'm going to keep my Henry McKenna on this side and my Knob Creek on that side. How about that?
Sounds good.
All right, so let's check the color. They are almost identical. All right, I'm going to give them some swirls here. Let a little air get in them. All right. I'm going to check the edge. And I guarantee you I can see it already. That the Henry McKenna has a nicer edge on it. It's not as flat. as the Knob Creek. Legs, however,
Both good.
both
On
of
the
them
legs.
are decent. I think, yeah, both of them have pretty good trails coming down, nice and slow and thick. So let me nose this Knob Creek. I'm getting the vanilla and the apple and the caramel, you know, typical stuff. And Beam Suntory is going to bring a lot of that to you. You know,
I got the caramel. I can't get the apple.
well, and there's a little brighter note in there, like a little rice spice or something in there. You know, not a lot, just a hint. Probably a little black pepper note. And there's some other fruit notes in there, but you have to really think through. And we'll go over the nosing kit next time I build one, and I'll let you smell what apple smells like with alcohol in it. That's been sitting with a little bit of alcohol in it. It smells different than if you just cut an apple open and smell an apple. I mean, there's undertones of that note there, but you have to discern it through. And one of the reasons you're supposed to leave your lips parted when you're nosing is so, and you breathe all the way through, is because if you don't, the ethanol will build up in your sinuses and you won't be able to pick the subtle notes.
Oh, wow.
And so you have to let it flow through and escape.
You smell the oak.
Now, I can tell you
The vanilla.
the Henry McKenna 10-year is softer on the nose a little bit, but much different notes to it. Still has that, but not as strong a vanilla. And you're getting a little more of that woodiness out of it.
Nuts? Do I smell nuts?
Yeah, it probably has a little nuttiness to it. There's probably some malted barley coming through on there. So I'm gonna go ahead.
Smell the vanilla.
I'm gonna taste the Knob Creek 12, which is not a bad bourbon. Not bad at all. Kind of sweet. And you can really taste those sugars, you know, on your tongue.
Coats the
And
tongue.
a lot of that's wood sugars coming out, and that, you know, corn sweet, you know, and stuff like that. Not a lot of breadiness to this one. I remember the Henry McKenna has a little pretzel-y thing going on.
Cheers, everybody watching.
Yep,
Happy
cheers.
Saturday night.
Not bad though. I think it's really, really good. And I don't know if you remember, but we did compare the 12 and the 9 before.
Yes, I do remember.
Right. And the 12, from that exercise, the 12 was better, is what we, you know, ended up with. A few more notes in it, little deeper notes to it, things like that. Now, let's go to the McKenna 10. Now, this isn't a proper tasting because we're pouring bourbon on top of bourbon without rinsing with water. And
I smell
all
the
that
vanilla
stuff.
really strong in this one.
Yeah, but it's a softer, like it's more of a creamy nose to this
Right.
one. The other one was more straight up in your face, the note. This one's like that's like if this were strawberry, this is strawberry and cream, right? So see how much fruitier that is?
Yep.
Yeah.
Good job.
And you get that little apricot note in there with it, and more of a I think you actually get more baked fruit out of the Knob Creek and more fresh fruit out of the Henry McKenna 10-year. But there's also that nutty underlayer, you know, in there with it. And there's a little bready note, like a pretzel, like a fresh baked. I'm not talking about a airplane pretzel. I'm talking about a pretzel you put the cheese on, you know. And a little more complexity to it. It has the notes that Knob Creek has, but it has a deeper complexity to it, like a lot more stuff coming through around. Now, the Knob Creek 12 is a darker flavored bourbon. Of course, we went over there the same color, and when I say darker, I mean in notes. It drags it down into that almost burnt caramel type thing, and
Yeah,
this is more of a creamy caramel. You know, so just because something is a 15-year or 14-year or a 12-year or a 10-year, it doesn't matter. What matters is that's what they were trying to achieve when they hit the bottle, you know, because you can enjoy a 4-year, 2-year, you know, whatever.
yeah, I like the McKenna better.
Mm-hmm. And that
Yeah,
was
I do
kind
too.
of my point with bringing out a 10-year versus a 12-year, because people always talk about, you know, they get hung up on like, oh, well, Pappy 23 is better than Pappy 21. Why? Have you had them both? Because I kind of prefer the younger one myself. You know, the other one's got a little more harsher, like got hit in the face with a stick of oak wood, you know. And but they're both really good. You know, they're both really drinkable. They're both wheaters. I'm not a big fan of wheated bourbons. Straight, you know, like the heavy wheat as a secondary grain. Now, I don't mind if it's the secondary grain, but a lot of times, like I don't consider it a wheater, right? So if it's 65 to 70% corn and there's 15%, you know, wheat, so 65 be 70, 80, and then 10% or 8% rye and the rest of it malted barley, that's really not a wheater, you know, in my book. Now, technically, it's a wheater because wheat is the secondary grain, and that's really the designation for it. But I wouldn't call it a wheater, you know, because when you get into W.L. Weller Special Reserve, all the way up through the Pappy Van Winkles, same mash bill. It's just aged with more care and gingerness, you know, on those Pappy barrels and all. Plus, they're tasting the barrel early, and they're like, "Oh, this is a good barrel. Take that to the basement." You know, oh, this one's all right. Put it up top. We'll put it as W.L. Weller Special Reserve. You know, so you're getting a different bourbon there. Same mash bill and all, but something wasn't.
So can they do 51% corn and 49% wheat?
They could. Yep.
Would it
Absolutely.
be any good?
Nope. I mean, to me, you know, the wheat kind of blands everything out, right? Too much wheat, it kind of hides a lot of flavors that you will get out of other bourbons. And I also don't like 100% corn. I'm not a big fan of the high corn New York bourbons and stuff, you know, like the Hudson Baby bourbon that they don't even make anymore, by the way. They finally got the hint, and but all they did was added 5% malted barley to it. It's 95% corn, 5% malted barley. That's Bright Light's Big Bourbon. Same bottle as Hudson, and they discontinued Baby Bourbon and went to Bright Light's Big Bourbon. But yeah, Shoe Man Fu, that's Bill, that's my buddy. I mean, I like Pappies. I like the aged wheaters that have developed a lot because I think when you soften the notes across it with that wheat, it allows you to go longer with the age and develop more complexity out, and it will create this silky, it's like dragging silk across your tongue when the mouth feel on those really long aged cooler temp bourbons, and the attenuation around the edge on that glass is like, oh my God, it just looks freaking expensive in the glass, you know. And you know when it hits the tongue, it's just gonna like flood the mouth with those oils, and the trails are like this thick, and you know, the legs on it are huge. You know, that's wonderful, but I'm not gonna spend thousands of dollars on a bottle of it. I'll get my fix every once in a while, and I'll go to Louisville, and I'll go to that damn liquor store over there that you can get a pour of it for $20. $20 an ounce. And if you think that's high, that ain't shit. There's a place right up the road here that charges $115 for old Rip Van Winkle 1 ounce.
Oh my God.
And that's the little cousin of the shit, you know? And no,
So you're drinking good bourbon and getting screwed at the same time.
yeah, well, yeah. And you're not even feeling it in the head. Yeah. Yeah, unless you got a real big wallet. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did do the math, and I offered to buy a bottle of the Pappy 21 for what it would cost to buy every shot out of the bottle.
How many shots in a bottle?
Oh, I forget now, but I looked it up, and it was like so many ounces to a 750 milliliter bottle. I forget what the exact number, because it doesn't come out exact, but I rounded even up. I was going to pay for that half shot or whatever and give them that much money worth. And it was going to be about $900 something for the bottle. And right around there, maybe it was $700. So I can't remember now, but I think it was close to $900. And I was going to buy a bottle to have on my shelf, and it would have been way up high. And I probably would never hardly ever touch it. But I just wanted that label up there, but they wouldn't sell me the bottle. And I said, well, what if I brought a container in and I just sat here and you poured me an ounce and I poured it in my container and you poured me an ounce and yeah, well, you could do that all day long.
But you can't have the bottle.
But you can't have our bottle. And I'm like, because I said, well, do you have an empty bottle? Just give me the empty bottle. Nope, you can't have the bottle.
Can I check out in the trash for the bottles you throw away?
Yeah, something, I don't know. But they wouldn't give me the bottle. Like if I brought a plastic bucket in, I could do whatever I wanted, you know, or a different bottle. I could have brought bought a cheap bottle of bourbon and went and poured it out at 750 mil and rinse it out a little bit and kind of let it drip dry while they're pouring all my shots up. I could have sat there and poured it back in it, but I wouldn't have had the bottle it came in. It would have been aerated. It would have had plenty of air in it. Hey, what's up, RB? Cool Running. Lone Stars in the house. Barnyard Chicken. Who did I miss? So we've been sitting here just jawing about bourbon. And for any of y'all joining now, we're going to end this here soon, but I've already scheduled the after party. So moving forward, this show here, I'm trying to keep it to 45 minutes to an hour long and then end the stream so that it's its own post to YouTube so that people aren't, because I had someone look and they said, yeah, I kind of want to get the info, but I don't want to sit there for 5 hours.
5 hours. Yeah.
And I'm like, no. The first 45 to 50 minutes is really what we talk about. And the rest of it's BS. And they're like, 5 hours is too long, whatever. So we're going to end this and I'm going to start the other stream. I've already posted the StreamYard link and pinned it on the other stream. So we'll put the link in, or if we need, or somebody, Crazy Ann, can you put the link in to the next one? Because we're about ready to move over there real shortly. I have it scheduled for 7:25, but I can start early. I don't have to start, at 7:25. I'm trying to finish that Knob Creek so I can enjoy that Henry McKenna. Had a
Bless you again.
Excuse me, allergies. Golly, it got warm today.
It did, yeah.
I can always tell when it gets warm outside because it hits me like this.
Pollen rises.
Yeah. I was telling somebody about the tree cutting down, and somebody posted like a TikTok or something of they were falling a tree in somebody's yard. And, the tree was well alive, but they probably were just doing landscaping or something, getting rid of a tree. And it was in the spring, and they show this tree falling, and it hits the ground. And when it starts hitting the ground, you can see this cloud coming out from under it, and it just engulfs everything in like this yellow greenish cloud. And they said, caption this. And I typed, release the Kraken. Because that's Yeah, so there's the after party. Crazy Ann posted it. We'll move over there shortly.
Thanks, Crazy Ann.
And like I said, the StreamYard link's already posted. So if anybody wants to jump in the basement, we'll pull you up and we'll just sit around and have fun. But for this, I think we can agree. If you didn't catch it earlier, I'm not going to go back over all these bourbons, but I was trying to let people know how to start a shelf, build a shelf, and where to go. And we sampled a 12-year 100 proof against a 10-year 100 proof, and
10-year wins.
The 10-year wins. So don't get hung up on age statement. It's about the art of what they wanted to release. So with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end this, and I'm going to jump straight over. Like I said, I can start it earlier, and we're going to crank that other StreamYard up. But thanks for joining on the Saturday Sip Along educational portion of the show, and hope to see you over there.